Okay. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the October 10th meeting of the Curriculum Committee. I'm Dr. Hinkle. You're going to walk us through our norms, and then we'll get started with the agenda.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. As we always review in the beginning of our curriculum committees, our purpose of the subcommittee is to collaborate between Board of Education stakeholders and school-based leadership to discuss all aspects of curriculum, instruction, school culture, and climate within the Weston Public Schools. We love to see everybody's beautiful faces on the call, so we do ask that if you are joining us today, that you try to keep your cameras on for the entire time. And if you are joining us, that your microphones are muted unless you have a portion of the agenda where you're presenting. We always seek to be present and engaged and to understand when we're asking questions and we're having conversation and discussion around the topics that are on the agenda. And we do spend a considerable amount of time ensuring that we have a purposeful and timely agenda. So we ask that we keep our discussions and questions on point based on the agenda.
Excellent. Looks like the first item on our agenda is the approval of our September 2023 meeting minutes. So, Chad, if you could give me a motion.
I move to approve the meeting minutes of our previous meeting. What's the date again?
September 2023.
September 2023.
Okay, and I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so motion passes. Okay.
Great. All right, so we'll continue on. Yes, Dr. Kingsley?
Yep.
Yes, good. Okay. So for those of you that may be new, we will every curriculum committee meeting, depending on the topics on the agenda, we always like to ask for our school leaders and our curriculum and instruction leaders, those that are kind of leading the work out in the field, to come and join us and provide an overview for certain aspects on the agenda. Part of our work as the curriculum subcommittee is to also approve any overnight field trip requests that will need to be approved at the subcommittee level, which then go and are presented to the full board for full final approval. If these field trips are on the agenda at the subcommittee level, they have already gone through a rigorous administrative regulation process, both at the school level and at the district level. They've been communicated with parents already. The chaperones have been identified. There's an itinerary. There's any costs associated with the trip and any budgetary implications that may be imposed to the families and the school. We also make sure that transportation is confirmed. We review this with the superintendent and ensure that there's any additional questions that she may have prior to coming to the agenda. So I just want to give you some background on that. This will be our first overnight field trip request of the 23-24 school year. And I'm excited to have our curriculum and instruction leader for music for the district to be here today to talk about this overnight field trip request, and that's Liz Morris. It's so great to have you here, Liz. And I am going to pull up some of the supplemental documents that were included in our agenda to help guide that conversation. So Liz, let me pull it up first, and then you can begin talking about it. Can you see? No, you cannot. Share this tab instead. There it is. I will do my best to make this a lot bigger. Okay. So Liz, take it away.
I'm glad you have that, because I did not memorize the dates, the days of which day we were doing what thing. So I'm glad you have that. So this is a trip to Nashville for an exchange program with a local high school in Nashville. Also on there is a visit for some master classes at Vanderbilt University. Also on there is a recording session at the Ryman Auditorium. And I think there's a couple of museums and other things on there as well on the days, which I don't know exactly which which days are what. So I think that first day is arrival for the exchange concert. The second day was Vanderbilt. And then moving on from there. Oh, the little bit of sightseeing for the Nashville, Discover Nashville, for the Music City Walk of Fame, the Grand Ole Opry House backstage tour, and there is the Ryman recording. I think the next day, if I'm not mistaken, Yep, there it is. So those are kind of the highlights of that. And as you know, as our music department, we do at the high school, we do like every year, we do like to travel for different experiences for students performing outside of our small community here, also getting out into the bigger world community. So we think this is an exciting opportunity for students to work with other students outside of our district, as well as do some recording in a professional recording studio, and as well as seeing the Ryman Auditorium, the historic Ryman Auditorium, Grand Ole Opry, and master classes. We love to participate in master classes with our college level clinicians. So that's kind of the overview of the whole thing.
I love the historical connections that this field trip provides to students. And so I wasn't sure is this a specific course, Liz, or is it just who gets to attend? I guess let's start there.
This one is open to any student in our performing ensembles, but we do have to have a minimum number of students per performing group in order to be able to participate in a master class or be able to participate in an exchange. So we'd have to have a minimum number of students for band, for orchestra, and for choir. And that's depending on voice parts, and instrumentation.
That's great. And I know that there's we have a plethora of chaperones because we have how many students projected to attend on the trip?
I think we have up to 100. I think that was our cap for this one.
Yeah, so we have about 13 chaperones that have already committed to go, so that we can ensure that the ratio according to the administrative regs are that are low. Obviously, we have some ability for flexibility depending on the age of the students, and obviously the older the students are, we usually try to work between 10 to 15 students per chaperone. So we're well into that in that ratio, which is great. And is there anything else that you wanted to add as far as why this field trip is important to offer to students? I know you mentioned about trying to give students opportunities beyond Weston that are in their field that they're really passionate about, but maybe something I've never been. I mean, I think honestly, Lisa was like, I want to go. Tennessee, that's really exciting.
Well, as you know, Nashville is the music capital,
Mm-hmm.
and Nashville recording is a big part of what happens in Nashville. And I think that the idea that our students can get into a professional recording studio, we don't have that opportunity here. We don't have the ability to record our ensembles in that way here. And so, we've done it when we go to Disney. We have the opportunity to act as studio musicians when we do that. This is we're going to prepare something and record there. And so that's something that's exciting for us. And I always think that working with clinicians, we can give the same feedback to our students on a regular basis, but having clinicians work with our students at that level really, they really provide them with a little bit more of the same. It ends up it turns out to be from somebody else, but that perspective from somebody else, even though they might be saying the same things that we're saying to them, really they get excited about it. And they're working towards something, towards that performance, towards that time. So they really get to that high level of performance that we're looking, the highest level that we can get out of them. So
that's exciting. It's like being on The Voice, but in like real life with real coaches, right?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I just think that it's really exciting to immerse students in a career experience if this is something that they really want to pursue. And my gosh, what better way to do it than, like you said, in a environment where it's very music driven. So any other
Well, and
questions?
they get to see all the different careers.
Yeah.
All the people in the recording studio, all the people at the Ryman Auditorium, backstage tour of the Grand Ole Opry. They get to see that it's not just the performer, that you have the opportunity to, if you did want to choose this as a career, there's a variety of people. I always say to the kids, every time you open up your playbill when you're at the theater, that whole list of people, they're all employed. So they get to see some other, different perspectives on music careers.
That's really exciting. Any questions for Liz?
I don't have any questions, but just a couple ideas to throw out there for fun. I hesitate to say this because I never want to add more work to teachers' plates, but I will say it anyway in case it's a good idea, which is simply, Weston punches way above its weight in terms of just the number of artists and folks with an artistic background. So if there's a way of just throwing out to the parent community, do people know folks who are in these industries, in these places? I don't know anybody in Nashville, but I do know there's lots of artists in this community. And it may be that as these field trips come across sort of, the agenda, that it might be worth reaching out to the community and seeing if folks know people in these places. Because I'll give an example. There's lots of folks with New York roots. And if you want to try to string this through from year to year, there's recording studios in New York. So maybe there's a way to follow up this trip in a couple of years with, doing a new recording of something similar and give kids an even bigger connection to an artistic sort of life. So anyway, just a plug to maybe leverage the parent community as well in that.
I actually think that's a great idea. And I think that fits nicely with maybe even some opportunities at the high school level for capstone projects or performance-based kind of tasks if students are really looking to pursue it beyond some of that field trip, right? Sometimes field trips is about triggering that passion and that excitement. And then, like you said, Chad, coming back and kind of continuing that experience to kind of see what that future holds beyond just being in the high school.
Yeah.
Oh, great idea. Awesome.
Just continue at that community piece. I love that. I wonder if there's any way, again, without not adding a lot onto the trip and the play and everything else that's going on and you're working on, if there's some way we could share with the board when the students get back a little bit of the student experience. I think we've talked about that with field trips before, but maybe if they go in advance and maybe take some extra pictures, or if they want to, if they're not able to make a real meeting, if they can record something that we can play, just again to let, maybe we can even see if we can get it on the full board meeting so that parents can see what to look forward to if they've got younger students, to encourage them and give the students involved a little bit of a leadership opportunity to share some of their reflections back.
If you run with that idea, a plug to let's make it audio, meaning we all take pictures all the time of trips, like an image in this case may not actually replace whatever the word is, a picture's worth 1,000 words or whatever. It might be that the music is worth 1,000 pictures. So if you go that route, maybe there's things that kids could do we could share at the board or wherever that is actually the sounds of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I wonder too, our student leaders that come to the board to provide an update around what's happening, maybe they could also have a role to play in some of that update if any members of the field trip can't attend. That could be a great way to highlight the experience also.
Sounds good.
Okay. I did notice here, I'm sorry, there was a slide in here for the field trip. I thank you. And let me just present that again. So if there's anything on here, Megan, that you wanted to.
No, you don't even have to show it. It just
Okay. There it is. Here's coming.
there you go.
I don't know.
There are all the things.
There's all the details. Yep. In a nice, pretty slide. So, is there anything else you wanted to add? I think Liz talked about most of this and some of those highlights. So the trip does span from the 29th through March 3rd. And as I mentioned, we have coordinated all the details of the trip already on the back end. Principal Canetta and Liz have already done a great job to make sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. So that way it'll be ready for the October meeting for full approval. Just wanted to give you that background. Okay. We're going to move on to the next part of the agenda, which, oh, that doesn't look great either. Megan, did you want to just present yours, which is the full slide deck versus me doing it through here? Would that look better? Bye, Liz. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it.
Okay, I was just going to say bye. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if Megan has time to just pull that up and share it, just because in a slide deck in the agenda, it doesn't always come full screen very nicely. So the
I
next,
present now.
yeah, go ahead. The next portion of the agenda is focusing on some instructional updates and information regarding curriculum and instruction, teaching and learning. And the first presentation will be led by Principal Canetta and our curriculum and instruction leader for secondary science, Beth Lancaster. I'm not sure if you've met her yet. She is new to Weston this year, but not new to the role. We did introduce her in the first September meeting, but we get to zoom in on her a little bit tonight, which is very exciting. So tonight's portion, or this afternoon's portion that Principal Canetta is going to lead, is focusing on changes to the Weston High School program of study. And she's going to lead that conversation, and then we'll open it up for questions at the end. Just some background knowledge for the public. Last year, we did not make any major adjustments to the program of study. We worked a lot on formatting for now because Principal Canetta was new and we were really looking at current practices around course offerings, and wanted to have another year to kind of gather some data information before we made any adjustments. So now this year, we're going to provide some updates regarding next year's program of study. So Megan?
Thank you. So this year, we have a few course requests that we would like to move forward. We have 2 coming from our science and engineering department, and then we have 1 coming from our school counseling department. So we're going to start with the addition of AP Physics 2. And this is really, the reason behind this came from the teachers. That's the first thing. This comes from staff in the building who really believe that these courses and these programs are beneficial and continuing to grow our programs and to really reflect the needs of students and to reflect the needs of just more contemporary sequences in education. So the reason we are putting forward AP Physics 2 is because it incorporates additional topics. We currently offer AP Physics 1 and AP Physics 1 algebra based and AP Physics 1 C calculus based. And what we are proposing and requesting is that we are replacing AP Physics 1 C and replacing that course with the addition of AP Physics 2. So both AP Physics 1 and AP Physics 2 will both be algebra based. And we have students who are also taking AP Calculus. They will also take physics. They could also have access to continue to take that AP Physics 1C AP exam if they chose to. So as I said, we'll be sunsetting Physics 1. And it just really makes more sense. There was some duplication in the units that were offered in AP Physics 1 and AP Physics 1C. So it really wasn't a sequence, although some students would take it as such. So we're really making improvements to our course sequence. So you can see there, students could have the option of taking honors physics, AP Physics 1, and then AP Physics 2. There is also the potential that students could take honors physics and jump to AP Physics 2 as well with the recommendation. Do we want to pause for questions in between?
Yeah, Beth, I just wanted to know, Beth, do you have any additional information that you wanted to add on at all?
I just want to echo what Principal Canetta mentioned, and that's that we're offering opportunities for students to explore additional topics in physics. There was a huge overlap between the algebra-based and calculus-based courses. So students will have the opportunity to explore additional topics like fluid mechanics, thermodynamics, electrical currents, which otherwise they would not have been able to.
Yeah, and if I could add too, and I think we all know this, right? Weston is a smaller high school. And so we really are looking at ensuring that our courses and the refinement of our courses are connected to the interest of students, while still setting them up for success if they seek to complete a variety of AP courses so that they can get college credit and transfer that credit with them. I say that because sunsetting Physics 1 calculus based, there may have been questions regarding what does that mean for students that would have liked to take that class. And we know that we offer calculus based courses at the AP level at the high school. So if a student wanted to take that AP exam, we still know that they have the foundational knowledge and skills to be successful in an AP course, even if we're not AP exam, even if we're not offering it as a course. So that may be a question that is out there in the public, and we just want to make sure that we clarify that. Okay.
Yeah. How does that align with what the College Board offers for their tests? So are they still offering AP Physics? Is it AB or is it AP Physics 1? Is that what it's called now? So AP Physics 1, algebra based, AP Physics 1, calculus based. In theory, College Board is still offering it.
Yes.
And then AP Physics 2, is that algebra based or calculus based? Both?
Algebra based.
Algebra based. Okay, so all of the physics offerings will be aligned with algebra base. They'll offer calculus as the separate math course. But in theory, if a student was accelerated in math and calculus and wanted to try the calculus-based physics test, they should be able to.
They would be able, we're not taking any opportunities away from a student, and we still know that we have course offerings that would make them successful because we have calculus AP and we have physics AP.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, next slide.
Okay, this is about a change to our Project Lead the Way sequence for our courses. And again, this came from Erin Lucia and a number of science teachers who met with me last year, and we continued the conversations into this year. And Erin did a great job of surveying her students and really getting the student perspective on the things that they were interested in and their needs, and then needs over time in terms of their post-secondary experiences as well, and what would be most relevant. So we are proposing that we offer this new course called Digital Electronics, which is part of the PLTW suite of courses. We would sunset Computer Integrated Manufacturing, better known as SIM here. The Digital Electronics is a course that's really more hands-on for our students. I was even in the classroom for Computer Integrated Manufacturing. Well, not for that class, but I spoke with students who had taken that class. And there was really a feeling that that course was not hands-on enough for them. And the skills in the digital electronics course are also more transferable to a post-secondary student's studies. We have, now I'm going to forget the name of the machine, a CNC machine. That would need some extensive improvements. And really, it's that Computer Integrated Manufacturing has just that, more of a manufacturing lean to it that is really not a course that our students would necessarily return to in their future studies. If they were going in the manufacturing route, certainly, but we have more students who are really more focused in that engineering and more digital electronics pathway. So we really felt like this was an appropriate adjustment to our PLTW sequence of courses.
Yeah, and if we could just highlight a little bit what Megan started to say about, we also Project Lead the Way. For those of you that may know, there are certain parameters and requirements that school districts must have as far as equipment and software in order to offer the courses and deliver the curriculum. So when we look at these courses, we also have to look at the costs associated with the equipment in order to run the classes. And so Megan alluded to that CNC machine. it would have cost us over $30,000 to replace and repair the equipment that is currently in there in order to run that course. And by switching to the computer integrated manufacturing, it would actually meet the needs of the interests of the students and also reduce the cost to run the program because the equipment is less expensive. Did I say that right, Beth and Megan? Okay. So we look at all these pieces when we're looking at program of study and also aligning courses that we have with the majority of interest for students. But we also look at what the cost and the sustainability is to offer these courses for a long period of time. And for some of the courses, especially in the STEM area, there's a lot of capital equipment. There's a lot of 10-year equipment that requires us to not only acquire, but also maintain. So we have to look at all those pieces when we're looking at courses.
Of note too, because this could come up, there were some robotics in the SIM course, but the robotics covered in SIM is almost identical to the robotics covered in our current class, the Principles of Engineering course, which we offer and will continue to offer.
Megan, question this. I'm not expecting you to be an expert in computer integrated manufacturing, nor in electronics. So if you want to delegate this question, totally fine. But if ever there was a course, it sounds like an approach, a kinesthetic learning approach would fit versus, more didactic kind of lecture, it certainly is this one. So is there an example you can give of the way in which this will be more hands-on than it previously was, or what you mean by that for this course?
Sure. So whereas SIM, I think was, and Beth, you can correct me if I'm wrong, was more about the planning and also more just a vocational pathway for our students through the manufacturing and the CNC milling, the digital electronics. In my understanding, again, right, former social studies teacher, there are more real world examples used in digital electronics. So Aaron gave me the examples of deli counter systems, home alarm systems, toll gates, copiers, paper, those day-to-day machines that we use, and students really understanding the ins and outs of how to create those machines, program those machines, and all of kind of the ins and outs of more everyday use. So not only useful in their future pathways for career, but I would say also just useful.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Just to add on to what Megan was saying, students will be working with the electronics and the circuitry. They'll be also doing the programming that they would have done with the other, but applying it to these different electronic real world examples. So really hands-on working with the equipment. And I was going to mention the cost, but I think that was coming up as the weight.
Yeah. Well, Tina, split into your world of project-based learning, but there is certainly no shortage of machines or examples, and probably even machines and examples on campus that one could leverage these skills towards. So since we're in curriculum committee, probably if there's ways to weave it even more into the students here and now, even within the building, that's probably a rich possibility for the learning to feel really applicable.
Yeah, I think Project Lead the Way does do a really great job of connecting performance-based tasks and career-connected experiences in a design thinking way. Probably, directly aligned to what you're thinking, Chad, also about project-based learning, right? Usually Project Lead the Way, when I think of computer integrated manufacturing, I think of the robotic arm that needs programming, and it's how they're moving different pieces together to build something new in a robotic way. So it's definitely something that the kids are very interested in, and it's connecting a lot of the computer science aspect of the engineering to some of the technology equipment that is now at the forefront of some of these new careers that are there. So, but this could be another example of highlighting some of the great projects that students are building and designing out in the curriculum that we can maybe leverage this year even or next year, and bring them and kind of display some of those projects out in the curriculum over the course of the year.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Just a real quick practical question. In terms of level, so prerequisites required, is it a 1-for-1 change? So the students who were able to take SIM can now take digital electronics?
And it'll be likely be offered every other year with civil engineering and architecture, which is what SIM did. It rotated, and our counselors know that. So when we look at overall like course sequencing and planning, that would just be part of the progression.
Excellent.
Great.
Okay.
And I think there's another slide. Mhm.
We do. The next and last course request we are making this year is the addition of a wellness seminar. And this really aligns to a lot of the work that our counseling group is doing with students. Right now, we have our counselors in kind of that universal design framework, working with all students that they see, whether it's through our health classes or in one-to-one counseling or in small group counseling in our counseling suite, using dialectical behavior therapy, the skills in schools. And that's really focused on the 4 tenets of dialectical behavior therapy, which are core mindfulness, distress tolerance, emotion regulation, and interpersonal effectiveness. So the students are being taught lessons in this in their health classes. It's being reinforced in our small groups in counseling and in those one-to-one counseling sessions. What this course is proposing is that we are offering a 1 semester, 0.5 credit bearing course that students can elect to enroll in that is a more intensive teaching of the dialectical behavior therapy skills in schools. So it's 42 class meetings with very, very specific curriculum that's tied into students learning a skill, learning about a behavior, learning to regulate, and then how they're applying that, and then reinforcing that over time. So it's definitely a more intensive group and a course that we felt was also worthy of being credit bearing. It is aligned to other schools in the area that are also starting to do courses like this. I come from a school that also continues to offer a course like this. And there's also a parent component, which is really helpful. So students who engage in the work, it's nice when the parents also can understand and recognize the language that's used, so that can be reinforced at home as well. It's taught by someone from our PPS group, whether it's a school social worker or psychologist or other appropriate PPS staff member. This does not increase the need or FTE. We can do this with our existing staff who are supportive and behind this and brought this forward.
And
Meg-
Megan, is there any specific training?
The training has already occurred for the folks in-house who would be teaching us.
Okay, great. And can you talk a little bit about how students will be can students volunteer to take the class, or are they assigned?
All of the above. So students can say, you know what, I think I could really benefit from learning some of these skills. Quite frankly, I would love if all students had the opportunity to take this course before they go on to their post-secondary experiences, because all of the practices in this are really great, whether it's dealing with new experiences, dealing with what are often the kind of norms of new experience and the nerves that come with that, but also helping students to kind of persist through those tougher experiences, whether they're with new college or career experiences, new peer experiences, some peer dilemmas and discomfort, and really helping kids to be able to emotionally regulate and tolerate those distressful moments, which are bound to happen in our human lives.
Megan, so you said assigned, so do students get assigned to this course also?
Well, we also know that teenagers do not really do anything that they don't ultimately really want to do. So they could be recommended, and we would meet with students, we would meet with families and say, we really think that this course is a great idea. No, we're not forcing anyone to take this course, but putting it out there. We also know, just through our one-on-one sessions with students and their meetings with parents, our counselors might also know students that would benefit from it. And students who would self-select to enroll in a course like this as well, especially given it's some of the practices that so many want to practice, for lack of a better word, and now to add a credit bearing component to it, I think just gives a lot of credence to the work that we really value.
Gotcha.
Yeah, this actually is great timing, because last year, if you remember, we did a full presentation on our social emotional learning curriculum K through 12. K-5, we use Ruler, which is through the Yale Center. And when we transitioned to 6 through 12, we shift some of that curriculum and the skills that we teach to DBT. And so this is not a great opportunity for students who may need more practice, who may need more time beyond, like Megan said, beyond that core curriculum that we're providing to all students, and just want some more individualized support around certain scenario-driven or scenario-based type of life experiences that they would love to have a trained adult to kind of help them through and talk through certain scenarios. So well done.
One final thought. Oh, Bernie, you go ahead, then I'll share something, please.
Just thinking about the students who are going to take the course, it seems like, if I'm hearing it correctly, there's more of a therapeutic bend to it. Students who are learning to use the skills themselves. Not as much students who think someday I want to be a social worker, I want to be a psychologist, and this is a class I would take, or maybe it fits both.
I think it definitely fits both. In my experience, I mean, there are more students who take it because there are skills that they need to improve on or work on. And there are also students who I've had who said, I'm really interested in that. And I think it would be good for me to have further knowledge of the framework for this. I mean, there's, cognitive behavior therapy, dialectical behavior. They're all different kind of realms of therapeutic work, but this certainly could be an opportunity for students who wanted to pursue a pathway in that field, for sure, whether it's social work, psychology, even a pathway in education, because as teachers, we often need to employ a lot of the skills of DBT as well.
And thinking of the students who take it, who also might have IEPs where there's a requirement to have a certain amount of social work or a certain amount of other, does this count towards that, or is this a completely separate category? Is it going to replace other services that students might already be having?
I think that is definitely a topic for further discussion once the course is approved, to see. I think that's on an individual basis, to look at a student's IEP, look at the requirements and what the student needs are. And in some cases, certainly it could fulfill whatever the objectives are for that goal in that service. But more to come on that.
Thank you.
I often beat this drum, but you can't talk about wellness for our kids right now without bringing up the subject of cell phones and social media and attention span and things like that. So given that this is already there, that might be a very interesting sort of case study or scenario to ask kids about. How do you maintain mindfulness while getting 1,000 notifications? How do you build resilience in this new tech landscape? I'm sure I'm not saying anything that the people who teach this are not already aware of, because it is a challenging time to help kids with these sorts of issues. But that's a pretty fruitful area of discussion, I would think.
It's definitely a topic of conversation in courses like this, and I'm sure they will be.
Yeah.
Chad, you'll be happy to know that one of the things that's often talked about is FOMO, right? The fear of missing out. In a course like this, what we'll talk about is JOMO, the joy of missing out, right? That if we put some of those things away, and actually we're present, all of those things, we can actually be really joyful in our present moment. And then instead of focusing on all that nonsense that comes to our phone, you'll also be really happy to know that at the high school this year, our phones are away. So they are either in the pockets or the backpacks, and they are really not seen in our classrooms out and about anymore, which is joyful.
That is joyful. I mean, this is not on our agenda, but just because it's in the news, like the UK, you probably read that they're trying to ban cell phones from schools altogether. It's a country, it's not a district. So this is definitely in the zeitgeist.
For sure.
Excellent. I think that concludes the changes to the program of study. Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Megan. You guys did a great job. Any other questions before we transition to just some updates around teaching and learning in the district? Excellent. Okay, I'm going to go back to the agenda. And as always, Beth, see you. Thank you so much. And Megan, you're welcome to stay as always. Let me just share again. Sorry. Okay. So we have no additional formal presentations beyond the program of study. Just want to give you some additional updates regarding some of the big happenings throughout the district. Let me just increase this a little bit bigger. So last meeting, I talked about the Teacher Leader Fellowship Academy. We are engaging in a cohort of administrators and teachers through Sacred Heart University. The cohort is being sponsored by the Weston Education Foundation. Many of you know that last year, our professional development focus for this coming school year was around building connections and creating a stronger sense of belonging for students, staff, and community. And so this Teacher Leader Fellowship Academy the theme this year is focusing on learning how to use teacher and student voices to create more joyful, impactful places for teaching and learning. We did engage in a full day training session with last year's fellowship group. Megan was actually there. I was there. A few of our teachers also attended, and the feedback that we received from engaging in some of that training with members across the state was really positive. We felt like we got a lot of good feedback around additional ways to build connections and increase culture and climate in the schools and across the district. And so although that was only one day, we really wanted to immerse ourselves at a deeper level this year. With that in mind, we now have a team of about 15 administrators and teachers that are now participating in the Teacher Leader Fellowship Academy. And last week, members of the district team attended the first session at Mansfield Elementary School. The focus was around the designer or the creator, Megan, I don't know if that's the right name for him, but he really leveraged the portrait of the graduate and designed that framework for many schools. And it was also, he founded the Green Light culture. And so the reason it's at Mansfield Elementary School was because they really immersed themselves in the portrait of the graduate at the K-5 level and decided to highlight that school because they've really redesigned the inside of the school to be more collaborative spaces, really focusing on 21st century learning. They have a lot of flexible furniture. They've redesigned some of the spaces so students and teachers can have additional space to communicate and collaborate on different projects and different learning experiences too. So the team went, we got a lot of great feedback from the first group, and there will be a series of additional experiences for our district team to leverage new ways to rethink and redesign culture and climate in our schools. And so we'll be having some updates from those members throughout the year and also at the Weston Education Foundation, which I'll do an update tonight because they do have a meeting tonight as well. So it's really kind of exciting to see how some of our teachers who are just in the classroom, they want to stay in the classroom, but they want a new leadership experience and they want to take on some of that role around redesigning or rethinking culture and climate and increase the ways that we're building connections among teachers and students, around students and with our community. So I wanted to give you an update on that. Yes, Chad, did you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick one, just because I just want to make sure I understand. Is there an example of what they mean by, building culture, or also similarly finding other joyful places to engage in the learning? I'm not totally certain I understand like a specific of that.
Sure. Mansfield Elementary School, they redesigned their whole school. That was another reason why we wanted to engage in that, because of the work of the EOC and redesigning either the middle school or the elementary school. So selfishly, we also went to see how they redesigned their school. Yeah. But the focus really was around leveraging more opportunities to redesign the school space. So their furniture was very unique and collaborative, meaning that they had more flexible furniture where the tables could be put together, the tables could be broken apart, different kinds of seating for students, especially at the elementary level. They also redesigned their learning commons area, which is their library area, so that there were more small group environments. So small groups of teachers and students could gather to work on projects in quiet space. There was technology embedded within it too. So if they were needed to present something on the screen, they had a space to do that. They also looked at curriculum design and looked at ways to integrate the Portrait of the Graduate K-12 at the elementary school, and how does that look within the curriculum. So it was really a presentation and an opportunity to walk through the school to see the space. I will have the presentation. They'll be sharing the presentation that they used with us, so we can see some pictures of how they actually redesigned the space, and we can actually gather it with the Board of Ed when we talk about the EOC work that we're doing moving forward into next school year as well.
Gotcha. I actually, probably because of the age of my kids, because I have kids in very young, but I actually had a couple of parents reach out to me about seating in particular. So that's good to know. Is there a place that parents should, specifically on that question about furniture and seating and how you're talking about, is there a place for parents to go to stay updated on that?
So I
So
think
Can I address the seating? So yes, because I was at that
Laura,
event
yes,
last
thank you.
week. I was in Mansfield. And so the seating, they do have, similar to what we have here, they have desks or tables and chairs in the classrooms, like work areas for the students. Some of them, as Tina referenced, are, they break apart, so you could have smaller groups of students working together. And then they also have some alternate seating in the classroom, similar to what, we have here at Hurlbut. And then in addition to that, there are spaces, kind of like the pod idea. There's a group of classrooms, and then outside of those classrooms, there's a common area. That's really a building design step that they took when they redesigned the building. And I know, Chad, you and I have talked about this over the years in terms of flexible seating here. We have various degrees of that here already at Hurlbut, and I think also in the other schools. So definitely something to continue the conversation on.
Okay. And just Tina, for parents, if they want to, they should kind of tune in next semester, or what is it if they're interested in seating and that kind of stuff?
So Lisa is leading the charge on the EOC, and I think that's probably where the work is going to live, to be honest with you, because I think some of it also comes into play with budgeting and architecture and all that good stuff, like Laura was saying, with the design of the school. So, but if I find more, I'll bring it back. I always love listening and hearing how the curriculum kind of connects to opportunities around, furniture and space. And they even had, Laura, I know, I don't know if you saw these, but Leslie and I were talking, the assistant principal at WIS, different kind of equipment to have kids interact with each other. They had like magnetic whiteboards that were on the wall. They got to take them off. So even the instructional tools were mobile and flexible, not just tables and chairs. There was a lot more than that. So I'd love to gather some of the pictures from that presentation so we could speak a little bit more about that as well.
Yes, and they did say they were very clear on a lot of the work and around the curriculum and the way they were teaching and the way the learning was happened before the building furniture design. That kind of came after to support their vision around teaching and learning.
Yeah, good point. And I think that's another piece that we really want to work on a little bit more this year. I know last meeting, we talked about the summer curriculum academy that we ran and how we really want to start weaving in the Portrait of the Graduate and filter that down further. It's not just a high school, it's a K-12 Portrait of the Graduate, and that starts as early as kindergarten. So what do our curriculum experiences look like, and how do we support that growth and development over time? So it's good that we have a framework. Now we just need to kind of make sure it comes to life a little bit more explicitly. Okay, so the next two updates, I'm actually gonna throw it over to Laura in 1 second, but the next update is regarding a follow-up to the shifting of distribution for the digital, shifting to a digital distribution for our assessments. Last year, we talked about how we've done a lot of paper distribution of NWA reports and assessments. And I mentioned that next year, meaning this year, we wanted to start shifting to a digital approach. The goal is that by the end of October, IT department will be able to distribute our fall assessment reports digitally in a digital way, so we don't have to be printing and mailing them. So Dan did commit to getting that done by the end of October. So we've had a couple parents asking about, when will we get that information? Our goal is to have them distributed by the end of October, but in a digital fashion. So you should be checking your emails. You should be looking out for that. Very similar to what we do with Swift. When you get a Swift email, now it will be customized by family so that you can see your individual student's report, and it'll be in the form of an attachment, almost like a link, a secure link with an attachment, so that you can access your individual student's information, which is exciting, right? That way we don't have to stop, and we reduce the mailing, all the postage and all that stuff. And so that's a great improvement to some of our practices that we're already doing. All right, Bernie,
Just
did
on
you have
that
a question?
Do we have any advice for parents when you get this information, what they should do with it? So it's
Yeah.
coming in electronically sometime this month. They're looking at these scores, and if they are unhappy or confused about them, next steps or what they should do?
Great question. So there will be a cover letter with some additional resources so that it'll explain what the data and what the information is showing. We are intending on showing both achievement and growth, because in Weston, that we want to focus on both. And in addition to that, the first line of defense is always your classroom teacher, but that's also outlined in the letter. And it kind of comes on the coattails of conferences. So there'll be an opportunity for parents, if there's any questions, to include that data point, because remember, we don't use one data point, we use a variety of data points, to include that conversation, that piece of data within the conversation at conferences. Yeah, good point. Thank you for that. All right, great. The next update is regarding communication of the new state law regarding kindergarten entrance for the school start year. I'm going to have Laura speak to this a little bit, but you all should have received communication from the district level regarding updates for kindergarten entry in the new state law. In that, Laura wrote a letter regarding some of that detail. So I just wanted her to take the floor and talk a little bit about some of the changes and where we're going to move forward as a district beyond that letter. Laura?
Thank you, Tina. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. So as you know, the state has changed the start date for kindergarten. Beginning next year, the kindergarten class coming in the 24-25 school year, children must turn 5 on or before September 1st. That's a shift from the January 1 date. So as Tina mentioned, a letter just went out. There is a provision in the law that parents can request if they feel their child is ready for kindergarten upon written request to the school, which would be to me, the principal. And then in conversation with me and looking at all the information about that child, we make a determination if they are indeed ready for kindergarten. So there is an early entrance option for this year if their children are born between September and January 1, if they would have been eligible before this change in the law. And I have had families reaching out to me since the summer, since this law passed. So we'll be working through that with families over the next few months. Our kindergarten registration opens by January. And of course, families are eager to have these conversations so that they can, make plans moving forward.
Yeah, and just to add on too, we as a district are in the process of updating our policy and our administrative regulations related to this law. It actually was on the table last year before we knew that law was coming. And so we tabled that policy that we were already going to actually review and approve. So we will be coming back to that now. It's been tabled since, so that we can update according to what the law defines. And so you, as board members, will be seeing that revision within the coming months to look at the policy change, to look at the administrative regulations change. And then you will have a final approval around those updates to the policy. And also, just one other piece, this will impact the course or the student enrollment in our early learning centers for our fourth and fifth graders, fourth and 5-year-olds. So we will be able to accommodate that as well, but that will be part of this transition and part of this process as well. Okay. Any questions on that? I know you guys were shaking your head that you saw the letter, so that's good.
Just thinking ahead of enrollment, so there's a chance that our kindergarten class this year might be small relative to our other sections because the students will then be in possibly a larger for those 2 years as we adjust. Do you have any advice for parents? So you always hear the conversation, if you've got a December birthday and the January was the cutoff date, do I hold the child back or advance? Now we're going to start seeing, I guess, this conversation around an August date. So if you're a parent right now, you've got a summer baby and you're looking at this new rule, do you have any advice for things to consider or steps to take before they make that decision to stay behind or to advance with the class?
Right. Yeah. So you're spot on. So we've now shifted the conversation from the fall birthdays to the summer birthdays. We've just moved the needle. So my advice to families always is, age is one factor. A birth date is one factor. It's not the only one, and it's not always the most important factor to determine if a child's ready to start kindergarten. The preschool programs are really a great resource for families. Their preschool provider really do, they have a good sense of students and if they're ready or not. I'm often in communication with the preschool directors in the area. Our staff makes visits to the preschool. So I think starting that conversation with the preschool, and then always they can reach out to me. I have a lot of these conversations.
Thank you.
Yeah, and having 2 children that would have fell into this bracket, into this predicament, I definitely think that you can never give the best gift is the gift of time. And so really leaning on the school to help support, make that decision if you really have that question is going to be key here. And that'll be part of the policy and the regulation update around what does that request for review look like if the child falls, if they're 5 years old after that September 1 deadline, because every child is different. I know I have 4 different ones. So very different. Great. Thank you, Laura. I appreciate that. I appreciate the feedback. And the last update, just real quick, since I have the audience and the recording is here, I just wanted to put another plug in for the Pupil Personnel Services Department. They provided a parent training last week on October 4th. It was recorded and it actually evolved from this curriculum subcommittee. Last year when we did, and Chad, I think you were the one that actually kind of requested a more detailed parent presentation with specific strategies and examples of how our K-12 social emotional learning curriculum can come to life for parents and for students, and what does that school to home connection look like for parents. And they provided a plethora of skills and strategies to kind of bring home that directly came out of our curriculum. It was a really great presentation. I actually watched it with my 6th grader, and she kept looking at me like, see, Mom, that's a good strategy. We should try that together when we're working on homework at night if we get frustrated. So it was actually, it was so good. And I really feel like if you didn't get a chance to watch it, it's recorded. It's a great opportunity to kind of see how this social emotional learning curriculum comes to life, specifically DBT. Megan talked about that course at the high school level, and this was another layer of learning, both from a parent and even from a student perspective that you can watch together. It was actually a great way to kind of build your own skills and strategies when you're at home working with your children. So the link is in there, but it's also on the Weston Public Schools Pupil Personnel Services website. They post all of their videos and all their trainings if you're not able to attend it live during the session at night. Okay, and that concludes our curriculum instruction updates and presentations for October. Moving forward into November, we did want to highlight one of our goals that we will be working on this coming school year. You will see in our October full board presentation when we present our district goals. One of our goals is focusing on information literacy and technology, and really focusing on some of the expectations around not only computer science, but also tech integration and how we're using that throughout the district. And we want to focus some of that conversation at the curriculum committee. And we are going to start with our K2 lens first. Then we're going to build on that and go to our 3-5 lens, and then our 6-8 lens, and then our 9-12 lens. So we're going to kind of see some of the goal come to life. And we wanted to leverage our curriculum committee to have that conversation and highlight some of the great work around developmentally appropriate and purposeful tech integration and what that looks like in Weston. So that's to come. It's in the works. And then one other piece before we open it for any other additional questions is if anyone in the public is looking to submit new topics for the agenda, obviously Bernie is the leader of this. Is that the right word, Bernie? I apologize. Leader. So what's
Chair.
your chair? Thank you. I knew that was the wrong word. The chair of the curriculum subcommittee. So obviously you can filter meeting topics through her, but if you feel like you'd like to submit some topics to me as well, you can click that link and you can email me directly. And that concludes our October agenda.
That sounds good. Chad, do you have anything before we make a motion to adjourn?
No, it's all sounds great. Thank you so much for the detailed update.
Yeah, everything looks good. All right, then Chad, can we have a motion to adjourn for the day?
Yeah, I move to adjourn the curriculum subcommittee meeting of October 10th, 4 p.m.
All right, I second it. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you next month.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Tina.
Have a great night.